right, hello everybody. Today we're going to talk about stages of life and the pros and cons of that. Of course, we kind of only know our own stage, but we've been through different stages. So I've been through more than you. I'm there to pave the way, baby. Let me introduce ourselves. My name is Cathy Livingston, and just to tell you what I do, I'm a mental health counselor, and so I do counseling therapy with for young people, for teenagers and adults as well. And I think it's important you know how old I am, so you know my stage. I just turned 60 this year, so woo woo. So and let me have Charissa introduce herself.
So my name is Charissa. I'm 35 this year. I am currently working as the youth pastor of Community of Praise Baptist Church. But prior to that, I had about 10 years of experience in the HR industry. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I've just been told that I'm neither a young adult nor a middle-aged person, so I'm caught in between. So that's my current stage of life.
That's what I told you. The all-knowing one.
Because you're 60.
Because I'm 60 and I know things. So today we're just going to have, I think, a very candid conversation. We don't have a script, and we just want to chat. Keeping it real here, right? Yeah. So why don't we, this is just kind of a thought, and you can take it somewhere else if you want to.
Okay.
Maybe at the age you are right now, at 35, you're kind of in that in-between.
What are some of the things that...
Yeah, what are some of the things that maybe are positives?
Right.
And what are some of the struggles that you're facing?
Maybe let's start with the positives first.
Way to go. Keeping it positive.
Yeah.
True youth leader.
Good vibes only. I think when I entered into my 30s, I really enjoyed the independence. Not that I didn't have that when I was in my 20s, but the independence that also came from knowing who I am and being comfortable with who I am. I think that was something that I really, really appreciated. So you've got that independence in terms of not being kind of bound by what people think you should do or should not do. But then there's also, coupled with that, the financial independence. I found that to be quite exciting in my initial years of my 30s, and then now that I'm 35, it's something that I appreciate a lot. Yeah, so I think that's one positive thing that has really stood out for me. And I see the stark difference between me in my 20s versus now. And I like how I've progressed.
Okay, so there's that positive, but was that transition difficult as well?
Yeah. I think I had to fight through many different situations, fight more of an internal struggle. My default nature is to pander to what people think, and to want to get their affirmation, their approval. So that's why I think in my 20s it was very, very hard. Coupled with the fact that I think major milestones that society said that you need to hit in your 20s, for example, getting attached and getting married.
Are you married?
No, I'm not married. And yeah, so like that.
Would you like to state your phone number for the... Sorry, I just need to give them things to edit.
That will be in the rolling credits.
The rolling credits for more information.
Because you need to stay till the end before.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that was one big thing that I had to kind of wrestle with. How singlehood did not define my identity or my value. And it's something where I think a lot of people are talking about nowadays, but throughout my 20s, that was something that I struggled with a lot.
But no more? Like, has it just gone away at 35?
No, but I think I have learned how to, it still comes up from time to time, that pang, you know, like,
Sure.
oh, I wish that I have someone.
Right.
But I think right now where I'm at is I've learned how to run to God with it, how to confide in God in it, that it's not embarrassing for me to lament to God about it. And strangely enough, I think because in that lamenting process, then I find that comfort. So to answer your question, it still comes up.
Right.
But it's not.
Just, I think what might help people too, because I think that's something that is not exclusive to you, right? That people struggle with and that haven't been married, and all their friends are getting married, and one more time a bridesmaid, one more time an usher, or whatever it is we do at weddings, right? And so when you say I've learned to run to God and to really give it to Him, is there any practical tools, any practical ways that have been helpful for you, but that might help our audience?
Yeah, I think for me, I had to cultivate the habit of journaling. Because I know my attention span is very short. So if I'm not doing something and I'm just sitting there and like dialoguing with God,
right,
or praying, my thoughts tend to wander.
Right.
But as I journal, I find myself being more comfortable in like pouring out what's really on my heart. And I think as I had kind of cultivated that habit, because it's already part of my lifestyle, whenever, say, an episode of me feeling like I have a lesser life than my friends or those who have gotten married or those who have gotten attached, because journaling is really part of my lifestyle, I find it's very quick and very easy for me to then just take out my journal and then begin writing.
Yeah.
And because my journal is directed towards God, it comes very easily for me to then pour out. And I think over the years, I've also then slowly started to learn how not to filter my thoughts when I'm journaling.
I love that. I mean, I love how you said you've cultivated that habit.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important that, you know, we cultivate habits, because life is a journey, right? And we'll hit walls in that journey, but if we've cultivated habits, then you can always fall back on those. Yeah. And it's not just singleness, but it's life.
Yeah, anything.
Right?
Yeah. So recently, just had a lot of not romantic relationship kind of issues, but different relational issues that have come up. Right. Again, that journaling gave me a space where, because you take time to kind of write out what it is that you're actually feeling, and it gives you that space to also process through where those negative emotions are coming from. What is the root source of it? And a lot of times in life, right, we think that we know why we're feeling a certain way, but actually we don't really know.
Right.
And what I found very helpful for me is in the process of journaling, like Holy Spirit or God tends to reveal things about myself to me as I am journaling. And I think then that's where also a big part of the comfort comes from, because I learn more about, okay, what is really triggering me? What is really bugging me? Right. It's not so much that I'm not attached, but, you know, perhaps maybe it's more of the sense that I'm not good enough. Or when I have a relational conflict with someone, it's not so much about that situation itself that I'm upset about, but the rejection that I'm perceiving to receive that really triggers me. And then it comes back to I must not be good enough, therefore that person is pushing me away. And I think it is because, again, this I've made space for this to take place.
I love that you went to that, because to the I must not be good enough. I mean, I don't love that you did that. Sorry about that, but I love that you mentioned that, right?
Yeah.
Because it's really often not about the issue that I'm not married, that I'm having this struggle. It's really about how it's impacting us at a deeper core issue, which is, I mean, being a therapist, that's what I work on with people is, so you can come to my office. No, I'm just kidding. Cannot, you're my friend. So, but right, it's really about, well, what is this really saying? What am I believing about myself in this situation? And is that I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable, etc. And because the world tells me I should be married, I should be this, I should, you know. And
actually, like, you know, if I like come to think about it, I guess the reason why that confidence in who I am, being comfortable with who I am in my 30s, probably is also that result of going through that seemingly laborious process of journaling, holding that space where, you know, I can take time to process through my own emotions and then recognizing that, okay, you know, there is this part of me that I feel like, or I just don't like myself. And because I came to that awareness, I was able to then I was able to address that particular issue.
Right.
And that brought about the much needed growth, you know, and recognition that, hey, it's not so much about the singleness issue. I don't see value in who I am. And I think that I've got no value.
Right.
And that's why maybe when I stepped into my 30s, I see lesser and lesser of this whole issue of not being attached, having a hold over me. So it's no longer that paralyzing. I don't feel like
like less of a person.
Yeah. So the emotions do come up once in a while, but for it to attack my identity, like I see a lot lesser of
right.
that. Like,
it's not that you don't want to be married. It's just that you're comfortable with who you are, which even makes you a better holistic person if and when you enter a marriage. And her number is 9. No.
9 is the first number.
9. Just pick any 7 numbers after that. Yeah. So, I mean, it's interesting because, I mean, staying with the singleness theme for a bit. So I've been there. Yeah. And now I'm 60 and I'm still single and my number is 9. No. So if you have any grandparents, but I know that it's that whole journey of singleness is very interesting, and the different phases you go through, and I mean just kind of switching over to another age group, you know, getting older and still being single, and I guess I don't get the when are you going to get married kind of stuff anymore. People have given up, so which is kind of nice, but there's still that the kind of the knife in the heart every now and then there is still that. But what's wrong with me? Right? There's the why wasn't I chosen? And then the people that say, oh, when did you feel called to singleness?
Yeah, right.
And I'm like, I missed that phone call. I don't know. Because it's not a choice, right? It's just that life hasn't taken me down that path. Yeah. But I think for me, it's just been, it's been such a journey of growth in myself. Like you were saying, you know, just becoming more independent, more confident in who I am, that you don't have to have someone. And I've seen that it doesn't mean that if you're single, you don't know what love is, because I think God brings all kinds of people into our life to show us his love. And it doesn't have to be from a spouse. Right. So that is not your identity. Right. But I will say from this stage of life, being 60 and looking ahead, I'm not going to say forward. I'm not sure I look forward to the next 20, 30 years of my life. Oh my gosh, that's scary. But I would say that the thought of growing old alone is extremely scary.
Right.
but also the thought of if I had a spouse and growing old and them dying is scary.
Yeah.
So I think either way, there's a path that is unsure, and we have to trust,
Right.
and we have to, I think, surround ourselves with friends and people that support us. Because, so you said you journal. Not a lot of people, not everyone likes to journal. I don't like to journal.
Yeah.
I kind of, there's little pages that have little blurbs on it,
Right.
but I'm not that's not how I process. So I think everybody has to find their ways
Right.
to process, to think through things. Because that's really, if we want to grow deeper in who we are and be confident and comfortable in who we are, we have to process things. I know plenty of people that just kind of, they're like speeding through life and don't want to stop and process.
On that note, there's also that not everybody knows how to process.
Yeah.
For me, I have come to learn that my nature is that I tend to be more introspective.
Mm-hmm.
So and the downside of that is that I tend to overthink. But in my alone time, I constantly catch myself like thinking back and reflecting and going through my day and be like, okay, why was this? Why am I upset about this? And it comes very naturally to me. But I've got friends who, like,
You got friends?
I've
That's
got
good.
friends.
Do you have any like older friends that have really like
I have a
helped
friend
you
who
a
is
lot?
60 who has helped me a lot. Yeah. So like, I've got friends who completely do not know how to process, do not see a necessity in taking time to kind of reflect through.
Right.
Or even if they wanted to, they didn't really know how to go about doing it. So I guess riding on your point also, it's not that journaling is the hard and fast rule, but the importance of it is just giving space to I guess reflect. And also when we talk about processing, it's just really to kind of unpack, why is it that I'm feeling this way? And sometimes you need a friend to do it with you, or someone who you trust, or even a neutral party. Right? Like, and that's why,
like a counselor,
like a counselor, like that's why people go to
Livingston Counseling,
or like therapists. If it's a bigger issue and a more complex issue, then I guess that's where it comes in very, very handy.
Yeah.
Bottom line is that there is no fixed way.
Yeah. And you mentioned, talking to friends. That's kind of how I process stuff. Is probably my friends get tired of it, but and it can be all over the place. But I process by talking.
Yeah. Right.
And some people, they live more in the moment, and which I'm trying to do more of, is really just appreciating that moment, because maybe I'm going off tangent, but again, it's in this stage of life where I've had a lot of friends pass away, and I realize more and more that life is very fleeting, and not to get all emo and depressing, but it's true, and that there is a part that we can spend all our time processing and not be in the moment, right? So there's a balance there of, I also want to grab hold of this moment, not knowing that I don't have
all the time
many moons left, right? But even as youth, we think that we have, as a teenager, we think we have forever, and not necessarily, right?
So it's very interesting. The other day I was just thinking about this, because my dad has a heart condition, right? And recently there was a little scare of him getting readmitted to a hospital because he was experiencing all the different symptoms. And at that moment, I think it just struck me that I was reminded again that my dad is not going to be around forever. But what a vast difference in terms of my mindset and my perspective, because if I were to think back to the time when I was in my teens, and obviously then any time younger than me being a teenager, it never, it's not something that I could comprehend that my dad would fall sick, or that he would pass on, even though logically you know that everybody dies, but you don't cognitively go and think about.
No.
But it suddenly just became so real, and it's like, oh, my parents are not going to be here forever. And I think then what you're also pointing out is that there's also that progression where you realize at some point in time, I'm not going to be here forever either. Yeah, that was
very sobering.
Yeah.
I think for me, I realized because my dad died when I was 17.
Right.
So it became a big reality really fast.
Right.
That was something I had to deal with at that age. So that was, yeah, it's interesting. I'm wondering, let's kind of shift a bit because that's kind of depressing. but death is a part of life. But let's shift to, you work with youth. And actually, I spent most of my adult life as a youth leader as well. Up until we won't count years, but in the present, right? I mean, life is very tough, I think, for youth. Yeah. I'm wondering, like, what are some things that you see in that age group that they're struggling with? And you know, it can be, I don't know, 13 to 25, right? What do you see as you spend time with youth that are some of the pros and cons of, I guess, a digital age, you know?
I think one thing that comes to mind is living in this day and age where we've got so many sources of information, internet, social media, the digital platforms. I was reading an article the other day. It talked about how it was weighing out the options of whether going to university is really necessary or not. And with all the information that's available out there, technically, if you know who are the people to go to, you can easily educate yourself via YouTube. And all these, because there are very comprehensive studies, there are very comprehensive tutorials that are...
But you don't really get a certificate.
So if it's for the pure purpose of education, learning,
all right.
You don't necessarily need to go to university. And the argument was that, you know, many more companies nowadays are more open to people not having the certificate, but being able to do the job. Okay. And that's the time that we live in, right? And that's what these youths had grown into. Like, they were born into this age. Whereas for you and I think we had a part of our lives where we weren't immersed in it, and then now we are.
Me longer than you.
Yes, that you weren't immersed in it.
Correct.
Yeah, so I think that's a positive of the time that they're living in that.
Because not everyone is academic and wants to go get a college degree.
Exactly. And not everybody may have the financial ability to be able to pursue something that they may really and genuinely want to do, right?
Right.
So I think that's great. But then it's also occurred to me that there's a downside to it, and great that you pointed out the fact that, you know, adolescence now probably runs up to 27 because development and all doesn't fully happen until, or doesn't fully complete until they reach their late 20s.
And don't use that as an excuse. I'm not fully developed. Well, you're fully developed. Sorry. Mostly, I would say. Hopefully.
But you can imagine, like, 13-year-olds who have so much information on their hands, but they aren't mature enough. And I don't say this in a demeaning manner, but like, just physiologically, you have not matured yet. You don't necessarily have the full ability to again process and work through all this information.
The rational, typically, you know, teens may wonder, why am I so emotional? But because that's fully developed, and so you know, the rational, the processing, like you said, is not, and so no match makes it difficult.
And there's so much access to so much information. Like, I actually feel that sometimes it might be a disservice to the young people because they're so bombarded and overwhelmed, you know?
Yeah.
And it's not like they don't want to be able to sift through and process through things well, but they just can't.
Right.
But and then again, because the entire society, we're all so busy and we're also caught up with our different aspects of life, very few people actually have that kind of time to sit and work through with the young ones. Like, okay, what have you read? You know, what's on your mind? What are you trying to work through? Yeah. So to me, I think that is something where it seems like it is a con in the sense where, because of the circumstances of where society is at this point in time, people just don't have the time to help. It has the availability of information and the overwhelming abundance of information. Perhaps maybe may not. It's not as beneficial as it could have been for the youth. Yeah.
So with that, knowing that they're bombarded, knowing that, you know, I just keep thinking, you know, the parents, adults are very busy because, of course, okay, we live in a society that's incredibly expensive. So you've got two parents usually working just to make ends meet. So they don't really have the time to, I mean, they do the best they can, right? But maybe not everything that would be helpful for the youth. I'm wondering what do you see as the need as far as the youth go? What would be helpful, do you think?
I think something that I have personally come to learn and experience as beneficial to the young people is really spending time with them. And many people, I think before I stepped into youth ministry, many people would tell me that in order to get through to the young people, you need to know what's relevant, you need to know what's trending, you need to speak their language, which is true, it's not wrong. But I think what I've realized is, those are tools that would help me enhance the time spent with them. There are things that they are interested in, but ultimately, because their amygdala has fully developed, and they are able to process emotions, and they can tell when someone's being sincere with them or not, they will open up, you know, and there are many things that with the youths that I look after right now that I don't understand. I've tried to go on TikTok, but you know, it's
You don't do TikTok videos?
I've done one under the guidance of the youth.
That's funny.
But because there's so much, you don't know what to consume, and it's so overwhelming. Like I've never really managed to kind of get up to date with it. But I realized, like, you know, okay, I'll continue to work on that, but that doesn't sabotage or kind of compromise the quality of time that I can spend with the young person. And nothing can kind of take that away, as long as in my heart that's something that I am committed towards doing. And I've seen fruit out of it, right? I've seen the young people being more willing to share what their real struggles are, because of time spent, because they know that someone like you genuinely care about what I'm going through.
And I think that's something that time does not stop that. You know, what is the word I'm looking for? Supersedes all time, right? Is that because I did like 30 years of youth work, and it's never changed. Yes, the social environment and the world has changed. Humans created by God for connection and relationship has not and will never change. And so everybody longs, our biggest need is, I believe, is to know and be known. And so I think when you sit and you connect and you look into someone's eyes and you want to truly know them and you spend time with them, for any of us, no matter if you're 13 or 80, that's connecting, and that is beautiful.
Yeah. Nothing can substitute that connection. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, things will change, TikTok, all this stuff, and new things will come in. Yeah, just to say that I think that's a very valid point, that even, and I don't think it matters how old you are. And, I was talking to somebody yesterday about this intergenerational, and that's why I bring that word up, is because I think it's so important that a 60-year-old can mentor or be involved in a 35-year-old's life, a 18-year-old's life, and vice versa. We both have things to give, and I think society and the church needs to be better at that.
Yeah.
Better at not segregating or compartmentalizing into these different categories, because we all have something to give.
Yeah.
And I will say, from someone that has just reached into the senior citizen discount age, that's ridiculous, by the way. 60 years old. Come on. I feel like I'm 20. Okay, not really, but almost. But I think you kind of feel like, oh, wow.
You should retire already.
Yeah, like what's left? I'm like, hang me up on a rack. I'm done. And I don't know. I don't know what to do with that. It's almost like I'm trying to refigure out my life again. I'm going through a crisis of what do I have? I still have a lot to give. Where do I do that?
But society tells you that it's time for you to take it slow, wind down.
Which it's true. I love that. I mean, there is that. It feels really good, right? It is time to slow down. I want to. I've earned that, but not because I don't have anything to give. In fact, I have a lot more wisdom, right, than ever in my life, and I think that needs to be tapped into, but not don't start calling me to do a bunch of stuff, because I also don't have that energy.
So what you're saying is that there's a conflation between the necessity of slowing down, and that's being conflated with old people. As you get,
I'm not sure who you're looking at. Not me.
As you get older,
yes, more mature,
that your useful, the value and what you can contribute to society is reduced. Therefore, you should take a step back. Like, those two things are being conflated. Is that what
I wonder. I mean, I feel that sometimes. And I think as people age, I've heard that people are kind of experiencing that. It's a very real struggle. So, yeah, I'm not sure where I wanted to go with that, but I think it's one of the struggles.
But I've got a question on that though. Okay, so something that I've noticed, and I'm also not sure where this will go.
We don't know where any of this is going.
We have moved from...
it's good. It's good stuff.
Singleness to death to...
We've covered the lifespan.
To senior citizen discounts. What was I going to say? So something I've noticed is there's this tendency that for people who are in their 50s, 60s, and they always say, I need to retire already. So like, I need like the young people are here. We'll pass everything to them. And I guess at the back of my mind, I always wondered, because then what their reason for saying that is because they don't want to hinder the young people from having the opportunity to step up and to grow, right? Fair enough. But I guess at the back of my mind, I always wondered, like, but how much of that is like really the motivation for what it is that you are doing? Because if if you do want the young people to step up, then there's actually a different role that like the older ones can play and have to play, right? You are then called to mentor, because you just throw it like they drown. And it almost feels like, I think what you mentioned earlier, that there is this mindset that I need to stop everything that I'm doing. And like that's what entering into your 60s, into your 70s mean. You know, there's I'm supposed to retire, kick back and wait for...
Lay in a hammock. Actually, that sounds really nice, on a beach. But I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think as you get older, I can't speak for the world. I am the voice of the world. My desire, and what I've heard from several of my friends, is you want to give back what you've learned.
Right.
So mentor, but I mean, everybody has different ideas of what that may mean. You know, it may mean I want to mentor someone in their 30s, or just walk alongside, or is it formal mentoring? I mean, mentoring takes on various forms, or business mentoring, spiritual mentoring, there's all kinds. But yes, there is a desire to give back, to invest in someone that's younger. And I would think, I can't say that's for everybody for sure, but from a big part of people.
Right. Is there anything that young people can change to invite, or to encourage more of the senior ones to invest? I'm just wondering whether, is it because if what you're saying represents a portion of the older ones, say within our church or various groups that we are in, but perhaps maybe it's apprehension of can I really, is the knowledge that I have really helpful? Are there things that you've observed where you feel like the younger ones can do to help encourage more of those who are in their senior years to continue, but perhaps maybe in a different capacity, a different role, as opposed to just completely retiring and not doing anything?
Yeah. I don't really know people that are retiring and not doing anything, but actually my friends that have so-called retired are busier than when they were working. But to answer your question, and then something else as far as getting older, but I suppose it comes with just knowing the opportunities, right? Because you want to find something that is your heart. Just because I'm older doesn't mean that I want to go be involved in the youth group necessarily, right? So not everybody's going to want to do that. In fact, probably very few. but so it's not easy, right? But I think just knowing what are the opportunities, and I think too, sometimes mentoring just happens with relationship. Like you and I mean, I'm not a formal mentor to you, but I feel like we both speak into each other's life, and that just happened through relationship. So some of it's more formal, and what are the opportunities, or maybe even being intentional and asking people, right? Hey, would you be interested in coming in? Like you asked me to come speak to the youth, right? So things like that. And if they can, they can. If they cannot, they cannot. So I think it really depends too at the stage of life. So some people, such as myself, are frantically realizing that, oh, my goodness, I'm getting old, and at some point I'm going to have to retire, and I have no money. So I did not plan well. No, I was a missionary, okay? So, yeah. And so we're frantically working and trying to, build up a savings, so we don't really have the time and energy. So, but then there are those that have done that and planned wisely. Those smart people. And, so maybe they have more flexibility with that, I would say. I'm just thinking off the top of my head, but that's just something that came to me.
You mentioned earlier about a fear or a worry that has kind of become more
I'm not scared.
Okay. A concern that has presented itself in the recent years about dying alone.
Oh, so
but it's a very, I would imagine it's a very real thing that not many people are willing to talk about. Not many people know. That it would even like cross our minds just because also we are at different stages of life, right? Would you be comfortable to share a bit more?
Yeah, sure. I think, you know, it's how to even go there. I think whether you're married or single, this is very deep. I was going to say you're going to die.
Which is true.
It is true.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah. I got my master's degree, people. That was very deep. But, you know, and we don't know who we're going to have in our lives at that point. Because, you know, I have a group of amazing friends that I travel with, I spend time with, and and we just journey through the struggles and the joys of our life together. But at the same time, I'm acutely aware that I may not always have them, right? We just don't know. And like I said, in my life, I've had people of all ages pass away, and it's just a fact of life that we don't know what tomorrow holds, right? It's very biblical. You know, you don't know.
Yeah.
Take care of today because you don't know what tomorrow holds. That's not an exact quote, but it's along those lines,
but
right?
We get it.
Right. And so I think, yes, I don't want to be scared because I always tell myself I'm a person of strong faith in God, and I believe God has carried me this many years of my life. It's not like I'm going to turn 61 and all of a sudden he's going to say, hey, old lady, bye-bye, right? He's going to provide and take care of me, regardless of what stage of life I'm in, regardless of what stage you're in. And I think for me, that's really important to ground myself in, because people will ask me, well, what about this? What about this? Do you have this? Do you have that? How much savings do you have? Where are you going to go? You know, I live in Singapore. I'm not Singaporean. You know, I may get kicked out of the country. Then I'm going back to, I don't know what. You know, so there's all these concerns as an expat that are a little bit different than a local. So, but back to your question on the fear kind of dying alone, that's very drama, because I don't think I'll ever be alone. I don't think I will die alone. I might not still have my closest friends that I have now with me, but I think that I will have I'll always have God, but also I think He will give people to surround me and walk and journey with me at the different stages that I go through. And I also think, though, we can't just sit back and say, oh, people come and surround me. You know, I have to be intentional. No matter what stage of life I'm in, I have to be intentional to build relationship and to be involved in things. People say, what do you want to do when you're, what do you picture yourself doing at 80 years old, let's say? And, you know, people were asking me that when I was 35. And I was like, oh, 80, who can think that far ahead? And now I'm like,
it's true.
Right? So really what I see myself doing is sitting on a porch in a rocking chair, you know, drinking tea and with a bunch of young people, not young, but with younger people, and just investing in their lives, whatever that looks like. So I always want to be surrounded by people, and that's going to cause me to invest and to reach out, to invite people into my world as I enter their world. And so, you know, I think I've asked you before, will you change my diapers when I'm 80? Take that out, please.
And this is the segue to adult diapers.
Save now in case another pandemic comes. Stock up. Don't worry about the toilet paper. adult diapers is the way to
Plus,
go.
you get discounts, senior citizen
I get discounts, senior
now.
citizen. Okay, anyway, I lost my train of thought.
But you asked me if I would change your diapers at 18.
And you said yes, and I will sign up a contract soon. So, but my point was, it's not about using people to help you. It's just about doing life and having relationships, because that's what life is about. You know, we think it's about achieving all these things, and that's great and all. I've achieved a lot in my life, and I'm blessed and proud of that. But in the end, what matters is relationship. You know, that's what you take to the grave with you.
Right.
Yeah, so we've talked about today just, you know, stages of life and different circumstances that we go through. And hopefully, for those watching it, this is helpful. I don't know, you know, if there, you know, how we can build on this more, but, you know, we may have subsequent sessions to talk more about this as things come up.
Well, I mean, I think we briefly touched on singleness earlier on.
Mm-hmm.
So perhaps maybe this might be something that we can explore a bit more in the next session.
Good thoughts. All right. So thank you guys for watching, and stay tuned.